What's up YouTube, it's Beautiful Flex, and in this video I'm going to talk to you guys about how you can fight taller opponents. So this is for short people or people who are short for their weight division, for their weight class. So personally I'm 5'9" and I'm actually short for my weight class as well. I weighed in at 84 kilos on Saturday. My last fight was at 85 kilos, another one at 86, and first one was 88, and I've always been shorter than my opponents, you know. So this is advice that I actually apply. I use this in sparring and in fights. I've only ever sparred one person who was at the same weight, who was the same height as me. Only one person. Other than that, I've sparred tons of people from other gyms, and they've all been way taller than me, or not even all way taller, but taller than me, right? All my fights, my 4 fights, all of them have been taller than me. So this is advice that I apply. So of course, I started off learning and watching other people as well, seeing what other people did, you know, watching fights, but this is what I personally use as well. So I got annoyed when I would go on YouTube looking for advice on how to fight taller people, because I'd find the advice, and the advice is some guy who doesn't look that short, and I'm like, oh damn, they must be really tall in this weight class. And he's like, yeah, what you want to do is you want to come in with a 1-2-1, right? And I'm like, all right, that don't make no sense. And you know, and I keep watching the video, and it's like, actually guys, by the way, I'm 6'3". I'm actually really tall for my weight class, but you know, this is what worked against me, which is cool, you know, give advice as to what works against you, but there's also a mindset, the psychology behind it, you know. So that understanding I'd never really got from those videos. Not to shade those people, appreciate them for all their advice, but it's very easy to understand it when it comes from somebody who's coming from the same position. It's kind of like learning to swim from someone who doesn't remember how they learned to swim versus learning to swim from someone who actually had to learn as an adult, for example, right? Or as an older kid or older teenager. So I have gone further in depth on chapter 11 of my pugilist program with demos and more instructions that I can't actually share here on YouTube, because my future opponents are probably watching my videos. I mean, they can already see my fights, so I'd rather not give them a step-by-step analysis on how I fight. So for those of you who want to gain more understanding on this topic, you know where to go. But don't worry, for those of you who can't get it, the information included in this video should be sufficient for your needs.
The ugly truth is there's this much difference between his reach and yours.
Number one is you need to be willing to get hit. So this is more so a mindset thing. You have to be willing to get hit. You can't be fighting someone taller than you and be scared of getting hit. You have to be willing, okay? Now, I'm not saying you want to get hit, right? But you have to have the ability to fight. So there's boxing and there's fighting. You have to have the ability to fight and to brawl. Not saying you should, but you have to have the willingness. So some people can get away with not wanting to get hit and that kind of caution and being overly cautious, you know, hitting and then quickly stepping away, all of that. Some people can get away with that, you know, if they're the same height or taller for their weight class, because they can outbox. But if you are a shorter fighter, think about it this way, right? You've got a short range weapon, they've got a long range weapon, right? So when you guys are standing completely far from each other, neither of you can hit each other, fine, you're both safe, but you're closer to his danger than he is to your danger. So as you're trying to approach coming inside into close range, because that's where your weapon is optimized and his weapon is kind of rendered ineffective. When you get close, the process of getting close, you have to be in his line of fire. So this is why you have to be comfortable getting hit, or at least getting comfortable being in the line of fire. So this means a lot of armor work, you know, a lot of training your neck, your core, right? A lot of defense work, making sure you're comfortable slipping, and also a lot of toughness. That's the best way to put it. A lot of toughness. So some people don't have it, some people have it, but this is definitely a prerequisite, right? You need this. You need to be willing to get hit. You can't swim without getting wet, all right? Now, obviously you're trying to get hit as little as possible, but you still need to be able to grit your teeth and just push forwards, right? Number two, you need to be able to counter. So this one, you don't need to be able to, you can start learning it basically, but counters. So there's two main types, interceptions, right? And being second, okay? So I'm gonna start off with interceptions. Let's say they throw a punch at you, you just intercept the punch, throw another punch at the same time. And you're kind of fortunate in this instance. So of course, being taller and having longer arms is an advantage, right? You got long range. Every fight starts in boxing at long range, right? Because you start off in your own corners, right? And then you come closer. So you got a short range weapon, he's got a long range weapon. You start off at his advantage. But there's also a few disadvantages to being taller, right? So one of those disadvantages is that you likely have a much longer torso as well. So there's more body to exploit. So as he's punching, I'm gonna throw a straight right because of the mic. But as he throws, for example, a jab, you can come and duck right underneath it and throw a jab to the body. There's things like that, right? You can even time it. If he's got a slower jab, you can time it and throw your right hand right at the same time. Or as he throws a 1-2, you can parry, and as he throws the right hand, you intercept it with your own right hand to the body, right? So you can do things like interceptions, or right hand to the head and slip on the outside, right? But intercept, right? Jab to the body and backhand to the body are great interceptions to the jab and to the right hand. Another very good interception, which I like to utilize a lot against taller opponents. I'm giving a little insight to how I fight, but I'm not going to give too much. The rest of this I'm going to cover in my training plan. But one other thing that I like to utilize is if you jabbing, right, someone who's head height, you likely throw your jab like this, okay? Like, I mean, this is not a right hand, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, you likely throw a jab like this, right? So your head is somewhat protected, like somewhat, right? If you're jabbing up, you throw it like this, your head is much more protected. If you're jabbing down, even if you try to turn your shoulder over, you're barely protected. So you can counter their jab with your right hand as well, right? So throwing the right hand as an overhand, but it doesn't have to be looping overhand, just as an overhand as you slip on the inside, right? So those are three effective counters that have worked for me countless times in sparring and in fights, right? So yet again, learn to intercept. Number 2, be second. If you're not very good at intercepting shots, you know, that form of countering, that can come with experience, right? And if you're fairly new, that's going to be kind of hard. So one thing you can do is just defending and then being second. So after they throw a couple punches, you know, they might come in, you know, they might just throw one punch, they throw a jab. You didn't need to defend it, you were out of range, or you quickly just step, like, you know, you step back or whatever. Now throw your own shots, all right? He throws a jab, you parry, you block, and then you throw your own. You throw it in 2s and in 3s, right? You throw a double jab to close that gap. You throw 3 jabs and you close that gap. He throws a jab, you throw a backhand, jab, and a backhand, right? Straight after that, right? The reality is, after he has hit, he's not always going to be ready to hit. More time after someone hits, they're waiting to get back into their rhythm. So you throw them off that rhythm. You throw a punch straight afterwards. So if you cannot intercept their punches, just simply be second. Wait for their combination to end and throw yours. Your shots do not have to land, okay? The reason I say 2s and 3s is because your first one and your second likely will not land, but your third one likely will, right? And that third one enables you to get inside. So while he's busy defending, you're busy closing the gap. He throws a double jab backhand, you parry, block, and then you come in backhand, jab, backhand, right? He parried, blocked, or I don't know, parried, blocked, and then got hit by the final one, and now you're close, and now you can work it in fighting, right? So there's that. Number 3 is inside fighting. You have to learn how to infight. I'm gonna make a chapter on this on my training plan soon, but you have to learn how to infight. This is very, very, very important. Now, not all coaches teach this as much. I understand this logic, right? More time they have someone who is a shorter guy, they just tell them to cut weight, right? You know, cut weight to a weight class where you are roughly the same height as everyone else. That is cool until the person just is quite heavy and they can't cut that much weight. And in boxing, everyone just cuts weight. So you might fight at 70 kilos, right? And these people are like 6'3". I'm joking, I'm inflating it, but they're quite tall. So what I would say is learn infighting from studying infighters, but also from sparring, doing, for example, sparring in a close range ring, in a really small ring, right? That's not that big that you can't move around out too much in, right? Or in a small space. Get comfortable in fighting. Watch some videos on it, but to be honest, the best way to do it is just go head to head, get your gloves, get real close, right, to where your gloves are touching, and spar with somebody, right? If you can find a friend, like sparring when you're infighting as well, right? Because you have to become comfortable in that range without fear of getting hit, right? This ain't gut checking, right? This is skill work, right? So, but get comfortable in fighting. As I said, most coaches don't emphasize that enough, right? Because most of the time they're not training you to fight people who are taller, they're just training you to fight people who are the same height and things like that. And if not, they're just telling you to cut weight. But you want to get used to infighting. Otherwise, what you get is you'll go to a gym, and because they're used to telling you to cut weight, when you happen to go up against someone who's taller, they're giving you the exact same advice they'd give you if they were shorter. The only difference is go to the body. But the principles are not different, right? The principles are still the same. You're still out fighting. So become comfortable in fighting, because yet again, they've got long range weapons, you've got short range weapons. So if you get comfortable in short range and close range fighting, that you've got it. Basically every single great short fighter for their weight class was good at infighting. So make sure you get comfortable with infighting. This is one of the most important. And the second one, which is also one of the most important, I can't go too in depth for this one. I am going to go in depth on my training plan, and the reason I can't go too in depth, right, in my previous plan, so the link will be in the description for those of you guys who do want to learn even more. But I do want to say I can't do it because my opponents are watching my videos sometimes, you know, I'm actually deep and they have access to my videos. So clinching is something that I have struggled with in the past, even in sparring, you know. So it is something that I have worked my way around. So if I now say exactly what I like to do, imagine if they now train for the next month or so, and then we have a fight on their show or whatever, and they know exactly how to mitigate my ways of mitigating the clinch, right? So I don't want none of that. So I'm gonna be quite vague with you guys and go further in depth in my training program, because if they do want to find out, right, they can buy me dinner for the night of the fight where I beat them up, right? So I'm hiding it behind a paywall, basically. Well, not really hiding it, I'm just giving access to those of you who have the pugilist training plan. But anyway, so combat clinching, this is extremely important because, as I said, you're working on closing the gap. Your advantage is close range, their advantage is long range, right? We do all this work and then what do? They just tie you up. And what does the referee do? He separates you and now you're fighting long range again. Okay, you're not allowed to wrestle them. They grab you, you're not allowed to wrestle them now. This ain't MMA, so you just have to reset again. So you need to know how to combat the clinch, right? So they clinch you need to know how to fire punches. I'm very effective at that. I did it in my last fight. There was only 2 clinches where he was able to render me ineffective, right? And that was it. And he clinched me a lot, right? And only 2 clinches was I ineffective. The other clinches I was firing shots to the body, shots to the head, because I worked on it. So definitely work on your clinches. The best way to work on your clinches, theorize it, right? Theorize how to get out of the clinch. And I say theorize because then you practice what you theorize in sparring, and then spar it. Have someone, whenever you get inside, grab you, and then find ways to combat that. But this is how you fight a taller opponent. The last and final piece of advice I want to give you guys for fighting a taller opponent is don't bother peekabooing. All right, now don't get it twisted. Mike Tyson is my favorite heavyweight boxer, and I love the peekaboo style. But I must say, no one apart from Customato has coached a boxer to become great using this style. The peekaboo style worked for Mike Tyson, worked for Jose Torres, worked for Floyd Patterson, and undoubtedly worked for plenty of people who didn't decide to use it in the ring as well, or just didn't become champions, right? But the fact of the matter is, unlike styles like the Philly Shell, styles like the Philly Shell have been used throughout history, and time again have proven themselves in the ring with a variety of coaching strategies. It worked for numerous people, right? Numerous people back in the day were utilizing this, right? And numerous people are still utilizing it now. Even you'll find Sean Strickland using it in MMA, right? Completely different sport. Most styles that are effective are constantly utilized by people. However, the peekaboo style hasn't prevailed without cuss. Peekaboo principles most definitely have, is in the constant emphasis on head movement and the demand of shift and the aggression, you know, the calculated aggression or the defensive aggression or the aggressive defense. But things like focusing on bending at the waist, things like that could lead to back pain later on in the future. Maybe someone will bring back this style into the limelight, but likely without the correct coaching, it won't happen. So maybe learn the principles, but don't just swear by the style. There are plenty other effective styles used by other successful, shorter in-fighters that you can use. It's cool, and Mike Tyson pulled it off, but you likely are not Mike Tyson. It also worked for his body structure, right? It worked for him. His peekaboo style was different from Floyd Patterson's peekaboo style. So don't just go, oh yeah, well Mike did peekaboo and he was short for his weight class, and so was Floyd Patterson, if I'm not mistaken. But it might not be the case for you. You might not actually work with that style, you know. If that style was so exclusively amazing, David Tua might have been like, oh, let me try this. This is the one style for short boxers. It isn't. It was a style that worked, but it was not the only style for short boxers. Rocky Marciano didn't need the peekaboo style. You get what I'm saying? So I hope this video helped you guys out. For more information on infighting with demos, for example, with how to combat clinching, the training protocol for short fighters, and much more, check out my pugilist training plan and use the discount code SHORTBOXER for 25% off. This code will only be available for the next 10 customers, so don't miss out. Alright guys, it's B4Flex and I'm out.